Tina walked through the forest. She had been bored for too long and no one wanted to entertain her, so she had gone here instead. At least no one tried to get her to do something on the farm when she was here. She had been forced to be with her grandparents on their farm the whole summer. Maybe even become longer, because her parents were out working outside of town. And as you can imagine, there wasn't much to do on the countryside when you were a 13-year-old girl who only knew the city and the fun of it. She had kicked and screamed, then begged her parents not to do it. She didn't want to spend the summer with her grandparents. I mean, it was okay for a week, but not several months. She didn't want to go there. She would be bored to death. No one would want her, and all her friends in the city would have forgotten about her by the time she would be back. But her parents hadn't listened. They had to work, they said. They had to bring in the money, and right now, as the economy looked, they just had to go wherever the money was, which meant that Tina would have to spend some time with her grandparents. And she wouldn't die, they said. It wasn't so long, and anyway, she used to love to spend time with her grandparents. But Tina had protested and said that was when she was 5 years old, not now when she was almost an adult. What was there to do on the farm? Milk cows? No way. But they had refused to listen, and nothing more could be done. They had dropped her off by the farm on their way to work, wished her good luck, and said that of course she would find something to do. She just had to stop sulking. Which made Tina vow that she would sulk until they came back, just to make sure they knew how horrible time she had had there. That had been 2 months ago. By now she had stopped counting the days and weeks and just given up any hope of ever returning to the city. She was doomed. Her friends would have forgotten about her and no one would ever love her again. This was her fate. She kicked a stone as she walked. The sun shone through the trees and it reminded her of her summers here as a girl. She'd loved the forest, and she still secretly did. I mean, not that she would have told anyone, but that was the truth, deep inside. The stone she kicked hit another stone and shot off into the forest. And it landed with a crunch. Tina stopped. Why had there been a crunch? There was nothing in this forest that would give a crunchy sound. She stepped into the forest towards where the stone had fallen, and there was something shimmering on the ground, and she leaned forward to take a closer look. She remembered nothing after that. The people on the farm would start looking for her in a couple of hours, but she wouldn't be anywhere to be found. She had disappeared from the surface of the earth, it seemed like. Tina was on her hands and knees in the snow. Her head was spinning, and she had to steady herself on the ground. What just happened? Where was she? A high-pitched voice chanted nearby, "You came! You came!" Tina tried to turn her head in the direction of the sound, but the world started to spin and she had to look down again. Why was she in the snow? How had she come here? The last she remembered, she'd been walking in the forest on a summer's afternoon. The shrill voice chanted again, "You came! You came! I didn't fall from a tree! You came!" She tried to lift her head in the direction of the voice again, and this time the world remained still. And on a branch, not far from her, was a squirrel, dancing and jumping in the snow. "I didn't fall from a tree! And I didn't eat all the bear's mushrooms! The signs were right! I'm not crazy! You came! You came! You're our savior!" Tina closed her eyes and shook her head. A talking, chanting squirrel. Had she fallen from a tree, and this was all just a dream? And where was she, and what was this forest? She opened her eyes again. Everything still looked the same. She was in a forest, in the snow. She looked up at the branch and, yeah, there was a squirrel dancing there. "Come with me! Come with me!" it said. She looked away, ignoring it. This could not be real. It had to be a dream. And she would not acknowledge an incoherent, chanting squirrel dancing on a branch. That would be to go too far. It had to be a bad dream. "The signs were right! No one listened to me! They thought I'd fallen from a tree! But you came! You came! I was right! You're our savior!" The shrill voice rang through the forest, but Tina ignored it. Instead, she stood up and looked around. She was in a forest. She didn't recognize it at all. It didn't have the friendliness of the forest of her grandparents, but the sinister feeling to it and a wildness. You didn't go wandering around in this forest by yourself, she thought. "You need to come! Hurry! They will find you here! Come, follow me!" Tina shivered. What would she do? She would die if she stayed just here. Her summer dress was whipping in the wind and she had already lost sensation in her toes. "Hurry! Hurry! They will come!" She didn't know who they were, but she didn't want to stay alone in this forest. Maybe following a talking squirrel was a better option? To where? She quivered. "To our friends!" And that was it. She couldn't go back now, could she? She had just replied to a talking, chanting squirrel. She must be losing her mind. She looked around. The sun was almost going down and the forest was getting darker and darker. The squirrel was already on its way into the forest and, with a sigh, she followed. They had walked for a while when the squirrel suddenly stopped and looked at her. "What's your name?" she asked. I'm Tina," Tina answered, shivering. And you?" "I'm Ratatosk. Come now." Tina regretted having spoken the moment she'd finished. You shouldn't ask a talking squirrel about their name, or anything else for that matter. It can't be a good sign talking to someone like that. "Hurry! Hurry! The wolves will come! They must know you're here already! She can sense it!" Who can sense it? Tina asked. "The witch queen! She must know you're here!" And with that, Ratatos continued jumping further into the forest, and Tina followed, not fully understanding what was happening. When the darkness was almost complete, Ratatosk stopped and announced, "We're here!" Tina looked around, shivering. She saw nothing different, only forest and trees around them. What do you mean? Where's here? She was so cold now when the sun was down, and just hoped that here would mean a fire. It didn't matter any longer that it would be a fire together with Ratatosk. It was better than being in the forest, cold and hunted by some unknown witch queen. "With our friend," Ratatosk replied. "Faye lives here, and we can stay with Faye." I can't see any friends, or anyone else for that matter," Tina protested. "Because Faye lives up there!" Ratatosk cried and pointed up in the tree she sat in. Tina looked up, but she saw only branches. "You need to climb! And quick! They will come for you! They're already on their way looking for you! Tina was just about to protest that she couldn't see any house to climb towards when she heard wolves howling in the distance. You see? They are coming! Hurry! Climb the tree! And that decided it. House or no house, she couldn't stay where she was. So Tina got hold of the lowest branch and swung herself up. Come now! Ratatosk was already up. Tina soon lost sight of the squirrel, but she kept climbing. The darkness was complete now, and she had to feel each branch before she stepped up. Then suddenly she heard Ratatosk's shrill voice next to her. We're here! Stay! I'll go and talk to my friend! Tina heard Ratatosk disappearing up the tree, and she followed the sound with her gaze. And yeah, up there she saw a weak light and something that looked like a treehouse. She heard a knock on the door and a creak as it opened. I found her! She came! Our savior is here! I didn't fall from a tree, I found her! I found her! Ratatosk, what are you talking about? Tina heard a voice say. You did fall from a tree again, didn't you? Or did you eat old bear's mushrooms? The voice seemed to belong to someone who had had this conversation many times before and was bored of it. No! I didn't eat his mushrooms! She came! Our savior came! She's really here! But why would I believe you now, Ratatosk? You have fallen from a tree before, many times. The signs have never been right. But this time they are! I promise! I didn't fall from a tree, the signs were right! She's here now, I will show you! Let us in! How many times have you seen the signs, Ratatosk? But this time it's real! She's really here! Go away, Ratatosk, you bring bad luck. Please! Let us in! No! I'll owe you a favor! They went silent for a moment, and then Tina heard a creaking of the door as it opened up more, and the voice said, So where is she then, Ratatosk? She's down there! So bring her then. Tina heard footsteps disappearing back into the house, and leaves rustling as Ratatosk jumped down the branches back down. The sound came closer until it was right next to her. We're welcome to our friend! I told you Faye would be good! Let's go! Ratatosk didn't seem to know that Tina had overheard the entire conversation, but she decided not to say anything. It seemed easier with Ratatosk. So she took hold of a branch and climbed up. And as she emerged into the light of the treehouse, she saw the friend that Ratatosk had spoken to. A strange being with ears and a tail, half human and half cat. Tina tried not to stare, but the being studied her with a disinterested look. So this is the savior, huh, Ratatosk? Yes, this is her! I found her! She came! She came! The cat being sighed, then turned and walked back into the house, and Tina and Ratatosk followed her. They came into a small house, where a fire burned in the corner. Tina shivered violently now. She was so cold, and all she could think about was to get warm. But the cat being didn't pay her any attention. Faye just went to sit in front of the fire and left them standing in the small hallway. Ratatosk jumped up on the bed next to the cat being and said, I told you she would come. You need to help us. No, I won't. But why not? You know what she will do when she gets to you, don't you? She will make a collar out of you for her coat. But we're safe here. No, we were safe. Until you came. But Lynx, please, help us. Look, she's so cold. Tina looked at them confused. They seem to know each other at least, but I don't know if she would have called them friends. Look at her! Look how cold she is! And the cat, being called Lynx, looked at Tina for the first time since she entered. Did you fall from a tree too? Tina didn't really understand. I fell? At least? Look how cold she is! Yeah. Why are you only wearing a dress? Lynx asked. It was summer where I came from, Tina said. There wasn't any snow there. No snow? What do you mean by no snow? There is always snow here. See? See? I told you she wasn't from here. I told you she had come. I didn't fall from a tree. Lynx took one last look at Tina, then turned back to the fire. Tina looked at Ratatosk, who just shrugged and made an obscene gesture at Lynx's back. Should I say something? Tina thought. Ratatosk had begun to circle a finger next to her head to show what she thought about Lynx, but before Faye got the chance to see it, Tina took a step inside the hut. Please, please, you have to help me. Why? Lynx said. I'm cold and hunted by some witch queen. I don't know how I ended up here or even where I am. Please, I'll do anything for you. Please help us. They went silent for a moment. Then Tina heard Lynx say, Okay, deal. And Faye gestured towards the chair by the fire, then went to get a blanket and a cup of warm tea with honey.